Welcome to Where Do We Go From Here? I'm your host, Kimon Kotos, and today we begin a series called The Decision Makers. We'll be interviewing elected officials on the national, state, and local level. I'm visiting today with Congressman John Spratt from South Carolina. Congressman Spratt is the chairman of the Budget Committee in the House of Representatives. Welcome, Congressman Spratt. Could you tell us a little bit about your background and the people you represent?
Well, I'm from York, South Carolina, all my life. I practiced law and ran a small bank and developed real estate before I was elected to Congress in 1982. I've served here now for more than 26 years. It's a great honor and a great privilege, but the problems of this country have never been more vexing or more compelling than they are right now.
Well, as chairman of the Budget Committee, you're quite aware of how serious this country is in debt and the need to move us forward. Could you comment on the impact of that?
Well, we had a deficit last year of $455 billion, and the forthcoming year, the current fiscal year 2009, CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, our neutral, nonpartisan budget office, predicts that we'll have a deficit this year of $1,250 billion. Unprecedented, completely unprecedented, and everybody knows that's not a sustainable path. That we simply cannot keep running deficits of this magnitude indefinitely into the future without paying some severe consequences, particularly for future generations.
Now, in addition to the Budget Committee being chair, you also serve as one of the senior members of the House Armed Services Committee. Could you comment on your role?
I sit next to the chair of the House Armed Services Committee, Ike Skelton, a good friend, and we together, principally him, but with my assistants, we run the House Armed Services Committee, and that's the biggest source of discretionary spending in the federal budget. Close to $700 billion last year, including about $160 to $180 billion for Iraq and Afghanistan. They have been extremely expensive expeditions, and that adds to the problem we have with the budget today, and we won't really solve that problem until we solve the high cost of defense along with it.
In addition to the cost for the military operations, could you talk about the impact of support for the veterans in your district as well as a nation as a whole?
Well, I come from a very patriotic district. We have lots of young men and women who join the military and serve our careers. Quite a few who join the Guard and the Reserve, but particularly the Guard, and I think just about every Guard unit in South Carolina has been in Iraq or Afghanistan. The 218th Infantry Brigade just came back from Afghanistan a year over there, and we've seen the National Guard become what it should be, and that is troops that are on parity with their parent active duty units. And so that's been a success story, but it's come at a price. We have seen units like the 218th repeatedly deployed, and it's taken a toll on the personnel for sure, and their families. We owe a lot to our veterans. They sacrifice greatly, and some of the injuries we've found are more difficult to diagnose than they have been in the past, but we've seen brain injuries and PTSD and things of this nature that are a real concern.
In the past year, we had some veterans care bills that were passed. Can you comment on the progress that's being made on that? I know when I interviewed Dave Ealing, our Vet Center coordinator, that veterans were only compensated 11 cents a mile going to their nearest centers. Has there been an improvement in the reimbursement package, and are we seeing more provisions provided for family care and housing?
Well, last year we passed the second GI Bill, or the third iteration of the GI Bill, and we increased all of the benefits, particularly the benefit which has meant most to America, and that is the opportunity to have VA benefits that help you go to college. It's substantially pay the cost of room, board, and tuition, and we increased that substantially, the largest single increase in educational benefits since the origin of that program. At the same time, what I've done on the Budget Committee is say we don't have the resources to do everything the veterans would like or to increase every program, but we can do and should do this. We should see that the veterans' health care system meets the needs, particularly of those who have service-connected injuries and others who are coming back from service abroad and have difficult injuries themselves. And so over the last 2 or 3 years, we have every year increased the presence increased by a substantial amount. 2 years ago, we had the largest increase in the 70-odd years that the Veterans Administration has been in existence for veterans health care. I think that should be our number one priority.
Well, one of the things that we're concerned about in Muskegon is how we can, as a community, reach out and help our veterans, old and young, to make sure that they have support. Not just for the services like getting to the doctor, but can you comment on ways that the general public can reach out and be more helpful to their
Sure. The first thing is just to be aware of the fact that somebody has gone overseas in many cases and has laid his life on the line and come home sometimes with wounds that will last a lifeline. For these troops, the war never ends. It goes on and on and on. Understand who they are and what they've been through and extend a helping hand. Secondly, we have programs that promote veterans employment. A lot of veterans come home and find out that the job they wanted or the job they had is no longer available. We need to have people help us give veterans priority without being forced to by law to prefer veterans when they are making an employment choice. And then thirdly, I think the veterans would like to have some companies as well as health care. They would like to have just the benefit of friends and just a recognition that they have done something that's unique and special for this country. They have helped make it the home of the free and the land of the brave.
Well, could you comment also on, with the budget shortfalls and the challenges that we have, will we see some re-examination of our expenditures on capital expenditures for military equipment? Do you think there'll be any re-examination of that?
Well, we have a huge defense budget now, but a large part of it is being used to wage military deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. As that comes down, the money for the purchase and acquisition of new equipment and the repair, maintenance, and restoration of old equipment will go up. It's already gone up substantially. There's something called Reset, which started out at $16 billion just about 3 or 4 years ago. Today, this past year, was over $50 billion. And that's the account in the budget that takes equipment from Iraq, to some extent from Iran, from Afghanistan and other places, and then brings it to the United States for repair, maintenance, renovation, and sometimes replacement. We're spending over $50 billion. I don't think we'll be able to sustain expenditures at that level, but that's a huge expenditure of funds just for the restoration and repair and maintenance of old equipment.
Could you tell us a little about who John Spratt is and what your personal sense of accomplishment, as well as some of the things you enjoy doing back home?
Well, I'm a South Carolinian, proud of it, and went to Davidson College, which is 60 miles from where I lived, a Presbyterian college, and proud of it and got a good education there. Was fortunate enough to win a Marshall Scholar, and I went to England and studied economics at Oxford for a couple of years. Great experience, and feel privileged to have had that experience. And then I went to Yale Law School and finished my degree in law there in 1969. I went on active duty in the Army in 1969, served for 2 years, and most of that in the Pentagon as a operations analyst. And after that, I went back home to York, South Carolina, and joined my father in the practice of law. He lived about a year and a half. We enjoyed that year and a half together, and I learned a lot about the practice of law from a lawyer who was a very, very able practitioner, my father. And I practiced law there for about 13 years, always hoping that someday I would have the opportunity to serve my country again in the Congress of the United States. I'd been here, worked with the Congress in 69, 70, 71, and it only whetted my appetite for more. But the opportunity didn't present itself until 1982, when 5 days before the filing deadline, the incumbent decided not to run again. As a consequence, I jumped in as quickly as I could, never looked back, and after 3 elections, was able to say I was elected to Congress, and I'm a lucky guy. I've done my best at this job, but it's been a very rewarding, very satisfying job to think that you could add something to this great country of ours. So I feel privileged to serve here.